As they stroll through the aisles, surveying the goods on offer, most people don't give a moment's thought to how those pineapples from South America or that basmati rice from India made it all the way to their local grocery store. That is, until something prevents them from being able to get their favorite Vietnamese hot sauce. Only then do they start to wonder, how did grocery stores restock their shelves during a pandemic with products from around the world? Times of global upheaval, like what we're currently experiencing as this video is being made, put a lot of pressure on our food supply system and show us just how complex and essential our supply chains are. Not so long ago, most of the food people ate was grown in their own communities, even in their own backyards. These days, though, most of our food needs are met by grocery stores, and it's big business. In the UK, groceries account for nearly half of all retail sales. A centralized food supply system does offer us some advantages over relying on what can be grown close to home, including more variety, increased efficiency, and stability, and lower food costs. That said, there are some drawbacks to this model, not the least of which is the incredible distance that our food has to travel to make it to our plates. So, just how far does our food travel? Further than you might think. For example, raw sugar from sugarcane grown in Maui gets shipped to California to be refined into white sugar, which is then shipped across the country to New York, where it's put into individual paper packets and then shipped all over the country, including back to Maui. Most of the produce sold in U.S. grocery stores is grown in Mexico, California, and Florida. Fruits and vegetables are picked before they ripen and transported around the country. Fresh produce is then gassed to ripen quickly or highly processed using preservatives for a longer shelf life. Apples and tomatoes travel an average of 1,500 miles before they reach your grocery store. Grapes and lettuce travel more than 2,000 miles. And all this food has to make it to stores around the world. But how exactly does that happen? Well, a lot depends on the type of grocery store we're talking about. Locally owned independent stores might take a more direct delivery of products. Local produce and artisanal products might be delivered directly to the store by the producer. Mid-sized stores and smaller chains will have a roster of regular suppliers and distributors that they work with to keep their shelves stocked. The largest national chain grocers might even have their own distribution network so that they can control every step of the supply chain. To keep things simple, we're going to be talking about larger national chain grocers from here on out. The supply chain is different for different types of food as well. Even large chain stores will accept some items through direct store delivery or DSD. Things like locally made baked goods or artisanal products will be delivered directly to the store by the producer. Even many dairy products are sourced from producers closer to the store. It makes more sense to produce less stable products like milk closer to the end consumers, to limit the distance it has to travel and the amount of time it needs to be stored. Fresh produce and meat is often purchased by distributors at regional auctions, sometimes even before the food has been harvested, before being shipped to grocery stores or sent on to other food producers who process it and package it. There are many steps along the supply chain before the food produced by suppliers makes it onto grocery store shelves and into the carts of consumers. To get a bird's eye view of how our supply chain works, let's follow a freshly harvested apple as it makes its way from the field to your plate. After carefully tending to his trees for months, the supplier, the apple farmer, harvests his crop of apples and offers them for sale at the regional produce auction. At the auction, his entire crop is purchased by a large grocery distributor that serves a well-known national chain. Even though he got a lower price per pound than he could have gotten for smaller orders, he's relieved to have the entire crop off his hands and money in his pockets. Once the apples are delivered to the distributor's warehouse by a trucking company, they review the apple orders for their customers, the grocery stores, and prepare the orders for delivery. The trucking company returns to the warehouse to pick up the apples, this time delivering them to grocery stores throughout the region. Once the apples arrive at your local grocery store, the stockers unload them and display them prominently in the produce aisle. As you pass by the attractive display during your next shopping trip, you're enticed to throw a few of those fresh apples into your cart, thus completing the apple's journey through the food supply chain. Admittedly, that's a pretty simple example of how our food supply chain works. There are often many more steps between harvest and plate, especially for processed foods and some goods that travel clear across the globe before they reach customers' carts. It's helpful to keep in mind that grocery stores don't actually provide a product. Their real offering is the service of being able to reliably find multiple products from around the world in one convenient place. Grocery stores act as the intermediary between food suppliers in different geographical areas and the customers scattered all over the world who ultimately buy their products. For most consumers, their only interaction with the food supply chain is their grocery store. But this is pretty well the end of the road. There are plenty of steps in the supply chain before the food reaches your store and ends up in your cart. Grocery stores rely on a huge network of distributors to keep their shelves stocked. The distributors act as the middlemen between the suppliers and the stores and function as an extended back room for grocers around the world. Distributors provide variety, stability, consistency, and savings to stores and customers. Take toilet paper as an example. Rather than have to predict future sales and make sure that they have enough extra stock on site to meet demand, grocery stores rely on distributors with huge warehouses packed with surpluses of toilet paper. When the store's stock is running low, they place an order with their distributor and more arrives within a few days. This is much more efficient than stores having to wait until they need to order enough to fill a full order directly from the supplier. Distributors buy from suppliers for multiple stores so they can get bulk discounts on these much larger orders and pass the savings on to the stores and ultimately to the consumers. For example, the U.S. grocery chain Kroger, which controls much of its own supply line, buys cereals from producers like Kellogg's to fill the warehouses that serve their 3,000-plus stores, which means that they pay a lower price than each store could get if they ordered only what they needed to stock their own shelves. This complex distributor network would not work without the transportation infrastructure in place to move products all across the country. We rely on ships, planes, trains, and trucks, as well as the essential personnel who operate them to ensure food can be shipped from suppliers to distributors and on to the grocery stores. But the real superstars of our food supply chain are the farmers and producers who make the products that ultimately end up on our plates. This distribution system is designed to handle a lot of pressure, but without farmers growing fresh food and raising livestock, there'd be nothing for this network to distribute in the first place. This food supply system is not static. The system is designed to be flexible so that it can evolve and adapt to the ever-changing consumer preference, like the recent trend toward organic and natural foods. This built-in flexibility also provides a cushion against emergencies. The grocery industry isn't immune to tech disruption either. Brick-and-mortar grocery stores now find themselves competing against online grocers. Many adapt by embracing these tech innovations, launching their own mobile apps and online ordering systems. Elsewhere in the supply chain, technology has improved the efficiency of the production and movement of goods. From digital SKUs or stock-keeping units, which make it easier to track goods and orders in real time, to fully automated distributor warehouses, and we can thank technology for the convenience and the ever-widening variety of our grocery stores. All of this technology also yields tons of real-time data about consumer demand and the flow of goods, allowing for further improvements to the efficiency of our food supply chain. Greg Ferrara is the president and CEO of the National Grocers Association in the U.S., which represents more than 20,000 independent grocery stores. According to him, thinking of our food supply system as a supply chain is a bit misleading. Thinking of it as a supply network is more accurate. If one link in the network is severed, there are always multiple alternatives. Crop failures in one region or a factory fire at one distributor won't cause the whole system to collapse. Retailers will just swap out products or change suppliers. This happens behind the scenes more often than you'd think, but the consumers just don't see it, since the shelves remain full of their favorite products. According to Ferrara, our food supply system is strong even during a pandemic. He has recently said the shelves do have product, they are stocked, they're getting restocked on a regular basis. The supply chain in this country is very efficient and it's very effective. While the food supply system is strong, certain things can put added stress on the supply chains. Events like a natural disaster send people scrambling to their local grocery store to stock up on canned food and water. But these events are usually confined to a specific geographical area, and the supply chain can easily adjust to accommodate the increased demand in one area. But what happens during a global emergency like a pandemic, when it seems like the entire world is rushing out to buy a lifetime supply of toilet paper and every store across the country is out of hand sanitizer? These kinds of large-scale emergencies are a true test of the strength and stability of our supply systems, putting extra stress on every store and every step in the supply chain. During the early days of an emergency, like a pandemic, the empty grocery store shelves don't mean there's a shortage of food. It only means there's a bottleneck in the supply chain as the system adapts to the changing patterns of supply and demand. During an emergency, like a pandemic, when less people are eating out and more people are cooking at home, excess food higher up in the supply line that was meant for restaurants can be redirected to grocery stores to meet the higher demand. It may take a few days for the supply chain to adapt to these changes, but as long as farmers are still farming, truckers are still driving, and packaging is still being made, grocery stores will remain stocked with food. Pandemics can add another layer of issues to supply chain management. Since many viruses can live on surfaces like cardboard and plastic for up to a few days, warehouses may have to put incoming shipments into quarantine before shipping them onto stores. During a true global emergency like a pandemic, there are other ways that the supply chain can adapt to changing circumstances and help protect our food supply. Stores may put limits on high-demand items to prevent panic buying and may reduce their hours, to give themselves more time to restock their shelves. Producers can adapt by increasing production, but they have to be careful to avoid the bullwhip effect. If they hire more employees or open new facilities based on an increased demand that turns out to be temporary, they could face financial troubles when the demand returns to normal. Another way producers can help out during emergencies is by shifting their focus to higher demand products. For example, Canadian beer company Labatt Brewers has responded to past global crises by using their beer production lines to produce everything from canned water to hand sanitizer. We do suspect that demand for beer stays pretty high during times of uncertainty too. Consumers can do their part to ease pressure on the food supply system during an emergency by avoiding panic buying. As we just learned, there's plenty of food in our supply system, so there's no need to clean out the shelves. If you can afford it, make a habit of buying just a little more than you need on the regular so that you'll always have a little bit extra for emergencies. That way, you can leave something on the shelves for those who truly need it when the disaster hits. Zippy Duvall is the president of the Farm Bureau in the US, and he's not worried about our supply system, at least not in the short term. He does have some concerns about what could happen in a few months from now, though. As he has said, empty shelves can be frightening, but empty fields and barns would be devastating. The truth is, the biggest threat to our supply chains doesn't lie with the grocery stores. When a store experiences a rush, they can usually quickly restock with an extra big order to their distributor, who usually has a huge warehouse packed full of goods. But we can't immediately grow more food or raise more livestock. So the biggest risk lies with the farmers who grow our food and the people who transport it around the world. Immediately following a major emergency like a pandemic, even when grocery store shelves are empty, warehouses are full, farms and factories are still operating, and there's plenty of food in the supply chain to meet demand in the short term. But in the long term, if the workers responsible for growing and transporting our food become ill or can't work, or if long-distance and international travel becomes impossible, our food supply chain could truly be threatened. Maybe it's time to start that garden after all. Just in case. If you learned something from this video, be sure and check out our other videos, like this enlightening one called US Healthcare System Explained. Or perhaps you'll like this other video instead. We may not be able to help you get your hands on your favorite out-of-stock treat, but we can definitely keep you entertained while you wait. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. See you next time.